let's talk about what parents have today available and what is different and significant versus what and why you saw the purpose to create what you created.
We found out early on with autistic kids that they're all different. It's not like, it's not a generic thing that they're all the same, that this app's going to be the miracle worker for all of them. So the best we could do was develop something that's somewhat all-encompassing as much as we can put in there and let the parent work it themselves. So, we started off with a real basic app that just captured the emotions in the face and the sub-expressions. Okay, we established that was important. And I had this wonderful caregiver she had 12 kids, and she said, I want to use this with all 12 of my kids. And she just went through, and every kid was slightly different on the spectrum. Higher on the spectrum, of course, you would indicate that they are high functioning, we call them. So they really work better in society than other kids. I think our Andrew was probably high functioning, but we ran across a lot of kids that weren't. IQ wise, maybe below 75. And so we thought, well, we need to cut off the app to lower functioning kids because we don't think it would have been effective. Well, that's not true, because one of the things we added quickly, we found out through Allie, my caregiver I'm talking about, she had this low functioning kid. And of course, being the producer I am, I put all these sound effects in the app. So it had a lot of buzzes and pops and all sorts of fun sounds, And this one child was playing with a balloon, and very hard to get his attention looking at a screen, really hard. And she was struggling one day. And of course, we would record everything just to see how it goes with other devices. And he heard a musical turn on one of the emotions, and his attention just got riveted, and then he didn't hear anything. Then he looked away, and then so she hit it again, and every time that sound, he would be riveted, and every time he came back to it, he would look at it a little longer, and then he started actually doing stuff with his face. Now, it took him a long time. It took him about a week to really get anything going, but that first sound effect taught us how important that was. It wasn't just capturing the face, but it was a production vehicle with some sound in there, and we had music, of course. So that we added, and it started to grow. The app started to be more effective with children. One little girl, we gave the app to say, hey, test this, play with it, and her mother worked with her for about 2 weeks, and then she called us and she said, you have a problem with the app. I said, what's the problem? Well, she's in the game and she can't get the 450th level. I said, well, what's the emotion? What's the level? And she said, well, it's sadness, and she's only getting 96%. She can't get 100. And we looked at it and I'm like, wow. So we tried to do it, and sure enough, we couldn't get 100. It was a problem in the algorithm that wasn't tuned in enough. Now, I'm not saying that the algorithm was incorrect. It's just that it wasn't capturing, because of the nuances of this child's face. Her resting face was a little bit negative. So that skewed the algorithm to the negative side, so you couldn't get to 100%. So another aha moment, we put in some settings so that you can set it according to the child's face. And that's a user setting for either caregivers, or if parents really want to do it, we have a how-to on how to do that. So little by little, we're adding little things to it.
It's almost like a workout training.
Yeah.
You could start off lightweight and build your way up. So you said you presented this to children. First, it was an older autistic individual or an autistic child, and then you moved to younger. Help me understand that.
Well, no, we started broad-based. We started from 5 years old to 16. And like I said, we started on higher functioning kids. And they,
Higher, oh, that was it. Higher functioning, not
yeah,
necessarily age. Okay, I apologize. That's what my confusion was. I got you. Okay.
yeah. So they were higher functioning, yeah. And the app was demonstrably better working with those kids. The ability to capture their attention was easier. The lower functioning kids, it's very hard to keep their attention.
You said earlier that it was like 4 to 5 years in development of this technology.
Yeah, we started off with real basic stuff to 2014, and I hired a team of coders. Actually, I started coding myself when I first started, and it was the most miserable 2 months of my life. I don't like coding. But so anyway, I got a great team of coders that came through and it's just been with us the whole time.
That's fascinating. Your personal experience brought you to this realization of how this technology could be applied in this training, emotional development, in this specific need, in this specific arena. There's nothing like this.
We haven't found anybody that's doing that. Like I said, the one company was working with automotive. They briefly started with autism back in 2012, but they dropped
Okay.
it. So
Okay.
we just picked, and also that was strictly desktop. They were not mobile, and that was the key thing that we did. We decided to develop this for mobile. And it was the best thing we did because
Right.
most people only had desktop.
So who were your first test groups? What group did you start off with? I know you mentioned these other large organizations that you started doing case studies with, but how did you start getting the users and just being able to, I mean, you obviously have your own child, but
I found a company in Culver City that was a very small company that had 25 kids, and there were 3 caregivers. They had, I don't know, 10, a little less than 10 kids per caregiver, care provider. And we said, here, take the app, work with it, get back to us, give us what you think. And we had surveys, we had all sorts of report back ideas. Every week I'd go back and I'd gather their videos. And in some cases I would go with them and actually video their session. So that was difficult because some parents don't like you to go in and film their children. So we just let them do it themselves. It worked really well either way. And so then we started building it. We thought, okay, I found another company that had 100 kids. And we're always at this point giving away the app and saying, give us feedback because we know this isn't finished yet.
what is the amount of time, like a weekly, that you're suggesting using the app, the parents bringing this in? How does that, what's the schedule? What's the regimen?
We suggested a 3-month period, and one of the innovations that we added to the app fairly quickly was
once a day. I'm sorry, 3 months, once a day. Like
once a day.
Once a day. Okay.
As much as you can. I mean, some parents didn't do it every day; they did it every other day.
Okay.
But there's a log built into the app where you can go and review what you captured with your child, either daily or weekly or whatever, and it tells you it's times, tells you what emotions you worked on in that day, and how successful you did with what percentage of emotion that the child was emoting.
Yeah. So
we would go and we gathered the log. We go
Yeah.
and say, show me your log. What do you got? And boy, it was so telling. It was amazing. We were so excited because we could see progress. So then
you started off with 23 kids, 23 children.
Yeah.
Well, let's start off real quick. What was the initial feedback? What was like, oh, you really got something here?
For the most part, positive. A few glitches that we couldn't really see until we had it tested ourselves. It depended on Wi-Fi. It depended on a few things that we've since fixed. It doesn't depend on Wi-Fi anymore. One thing that was really important was, adding the accountability and the log. That was amazing to care providers, because then they say, hey, I can log in multiple kids on my app So we actually made an app for care providers, not just one-on-one per kid. That again changed the game because one care provider could take all 12 of their kids and work this one app on all kids.
Right.
And all of a sudden we saw a market fit for that.
This is fascinating because you're bringing in this technology that is totally visual.
Yeah.
And it's biofeedback specifically for this need and this disconnect that's needing to bridge for this autistic child.
Right.
So this is a whole different type of treatment, therapy, regimen, etc. So you're presenting this to a caretaker and they're like, okay, what are you doing here? Because what's the traditional? What is the traditional? What besides what before yours came around? What was the traditional they were doing?
Cue cards, cartoons like, here, identify this emotion. What do you see? There's a smiley face. What is it? Happy, sad, angry, contempt, disgust, surprise, joy. There's the 7. So what are you seeing? Oh, okay. But then that's fine. They can see a picture, but to actually do it in real life, they couldn't do it necessarily. You couldn't translate that as well. That's what this app is different because it gives the child a realization on their own face.
Yeah.
And then they say, oh, I know how to make that emotion.
Right.
Surprise, big eyes, jaw drop, combination of eyes open, jaw drop.
Right.
Then they see somebody else do it and they, oh, you didn't do more than 50%. And it gets funny because they start seeing to what extent this person's surprised or not surprised or what extent they're sad. They start seeing levels, right? So there's another thing we added. We saw kids starting saying, oh, I can't get past 60%. So now on the settings side of it, the care provider can set, okay, grab between 50 and 60% only on this particular test. So the child has to go a little bit happy, or a little bit sad. And that helps them in real life because then they see somebody's face, maybe they got a little hint of anger or a little hint of fear, right? And they start seeing it. They couldn't see it before. They just see a face with something going on, but they couldn't identify it, right? Hey, they see it themselves. Like, hey, I see that, That's the fun. It turned into fun, It wasn't just a clinical study. That we really didn't want to do that because if kids don't want to use it, we can't sell it,
So now you said
go ahead, Crispin.
You said you have a couple of games on this app. How many do you have, and what do they do?
Well, it's one all-encompassing game, but it employs all of the age-appropriate faces. So it gets increasingly difficult as the higher you get in the game. So it starts off with just happy, just sad, just basic emotions. And you can key it to 4-year-old teacher, 6, 8, 10, 12, all the way up to 18-year-old. Then it starts getting more sophisticated. There's a little bit of a smile on let's say a 12-year-old training face. And it gets and the game says you see 4 or 5 faces up on the screen. Pick the jaw drop. Pick the wink. Pick the nose curl. So it's not just the emotions they're picking the sub-expressions. Then that really gets great because then they really know what they're looking for. And then they can tell you, they're quick. I mean, they go, oh, well, I know that goes with disgust. A little bit that's disgust, with a crinkle of the eye with that's a combination, right? You can also, in anger, you can add a little bit of crinkle of the nose, So then they start getting it.
Were you able
to me, that's it. That's the gold right there. When they start getting it, oh man, I love it.
I remember you were talking about different settings on the amount of emotions and so on. Are you able to set settings such that the the kid who can just barely get like 40% or 50%, that actually looks like 100% to them, so that
Well,
they.
that's interesting you say that. We didn't want to skew it that way. However, in our research with all this, I actually did some testing on dementia patients.
Mhm.
And as you probably know, dementia patients have a much smaller expression range. They're not all over the place. They're just a little bit, right? Also, with Japanese, we found that they are much more conservative with their emotions. So yeah, in that case, we did. For the Japanese model, we did increase the scale.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was the only exception, though. Any other race, we didn't find any different. We tried 175 countries, and Japanese was the one that was more conservative.
Right. It
Was
sounds
there-
like maybe you're able to actually take this to different situations, perhaps having the same app or something very similar to it to work with dementia patients. Do you think that might be something in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many verticals on this. We had to focus on. We really wanted to focus on autism. I could have gone down the road with bank fraud. I could have gone down the road with so many different ways, other things. But I just felt like it was really important to stick with autism for now, because I'm living it.
You're living it.